Recording in progress.
What do they think, right?
They don't take anything, but I was, so
Yeah.
technically,
Yeah, that could be that one.
but that would be that far one,
Yeah.
this one.
Okay, I'll let them know
We just don't.
that they're opposites. Okay, testing for audio for captions, 1, 2. Are you hearing me on the Zoom? Testing 1, 2. Awesome.
Check test, check test.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here today. Certainly, this feels a little awkward being this high up on a dais. Certainly inflates my feelings, already present feelings of self-importance. So, welcome to the 600th board meeting of the California Regional Water Quality Board, Central Valley Region here in Sacramento. The meeting of the Central Valley Board is called to order now at, was it Mindy, 9:04? And a quorum of the board is present. This meeting is being live streamed and the full video will be available on YouTube following this meeting. I am Nick Abdus, the chair of the Central Valley Water Board. I will introduce other board members in just a moment. I'll now go through the emergency evacuation procedures. Please look around you and identify the two exits closest to you. In the event of a fire alarm, we are required to gather our valuables and evacuate this room immediately and head to Cesar Chavez Park, which is catty corner to the exit to the Cal EPA building. Please obey all the traffic signs and be careful when crossing the street. Mindy, can you please begin by providing instructions for members of the public that plan to participate in today's meeting?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mindy Bunn, and I am the clerk of the board. I'll begin by sharing some information about how public.
Mindy, is your mic on? Either that or I can't hear.
It's on green.
Oh, it is. Can everybody hear Mindy out there? No?
Is this better? There we go.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mindy Bunn, and I am the clerk of the board. I'll begin by sharing some information about how public participation will be organized for today's meeting. If you wish to make a verbal comment on one of the board items or during the public forum, you must be attending either in person, through the Zoom platform, or by calling in via phone. If you're currently watching the webcast on CalSpan but would like to make a comment, please email me now at agenda5@waterboards.ca.gov to request the Zoom link. If you're already on the Zoom webinar and wish to speak but have not pre-registered, please raise your hand and you'll be called on. If you're using a computer or tablet, please click the raise hand button. If you're calling in by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. Generally, in-person commenters will be called on first, followed by Zoom and phone participants. If you're here in person and wish to speak but haven't completed a blue comment card and given it to a staff member, or if you're on Zoom and haven't raised your hand, you may miss your opportunity to speak. Staff will call each commenter by name and your microphone will be unmuted. If you're calling in by phone, staff will identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. For the record, please state your name and who you are representing before speaking. This is especially important for those testifying on an item. Unless you've been granted additional time, each speaker will have 3 minutes. A bell will sound when your time is up. Please speak from a quiet location to minimize background noise. And finally, a friendly reminder to our board members, presenters, and staff, please mute yourself when not speaking to reduce background noise. And if possible, keep your camera on when speaking. Thank you.
Thanks, Mindy. I will now introduce the other board members. First, we'll start off with the folks here to my left here in person. We have Elena Lee Reeder of Sacramento. Next to her is Mark Bradford of Sacramento. And next to Mark is Sean Yang of Sacramento. Do we have Denise on? I think there she is, and Denise Kadara of Allensworth, who is participating remotely this morning. Good morning, Denise. Nice to see you. And of course, I'm Nick Abdis here in Sacramento. Nicole Morgan, a State Water Board member, is participating in this meeting. She will provide an update a little later. I'll now introduce Executive Director Patrick Palupa, who will introduce his staff. But before that, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. And pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, Chair Advis, members of the board. I'm introducing my staff to my far left. We have Adam Lapitz of the Central Valley Water Board's Rancho Cordova office. To my immediate left, Mindy Bunn, clerk to the board. To my right, Jessica Yar with the Office of Chief Counsel. And across from me, from your left to your right, we have Chris Moskal with the Office of Chief Counsel. We have Christina, I think I see her, Christina Shoup with the board's Fresno office. Apologies, this is a unusually large room, and I think we haven't had a meeting here in about 10 years. But to Christina's left, we have JJ Baum with the board's Rancho Cordova office. And to his left, we have Clint Snyder with the board's Reading office. And there are a number of staff and supervisors in the audience as well.
Thank you, Patrick. Moving on, at this point in the agenda, disclosure of board member communications. Any board members have any communications since the last meeting that they would like to report on or disclose? No? Nope. Denise?
Yes, Denise, I do.
Okay, go ahead, Denise.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. On the 10th of July, we had in Allensworth a tour from the Department of Water Resources. The deputy and her team were in Allensworth to tour the latest arsenic remediation testing lab. This is dealing with the domestic water system. In fact, the testing results have shown that there's been no arsenic in the water as a result of them, the latest test. As a result of that, we have actually worked with the community and worked with Dr. Gaggill and the lab to actually deliver this water to the residents, the water as it's being processed. So we have an opportunity right now to give our community free, safe drinking water. So that's definitely a good thing for Allensworth. We've been working with Dr. Gaggill and the team from UC Berkeley since February of 2018. So to be at this particular point is an exciting opportunity for Allensworth to have safe drinking water. On the 18th of July, we had former Congresswoman Katie Porter came to visit us in Allensworth. And then the last item to report is Abby Edwards, the chair for the Integrated Climate Adaptation and Resiliency Program Technical Advisory Council. We've been meeting with her. In fact, we had a meeting yesterday, and the program, their next meeting will be in October 24th, and it will actually be in the community of Allensworth. So the next public meeting for ICARC would be in Allensworth. So it's another exciting opportunity for things that are happening in our community related to water and all of the things that we try to do to protect the public. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Denise. Next, I would like to invite our state board representative, Nicole Morgan, to provide an update. Good morning, Nicole, and thank you for being here.
Good morning, Chair Avis and members of the board. It is an honor to be able to join you this morning and to provide you with an update. Just want to say, I did alert Denise and just want to let you all know that I was at a meeting earlier this week where Assemblymember Mike Gibson did speak about the struggles of Allensworth. And so it was just really great to hear that Denise's work has really reached so many, and that others are also now speaking about those struggles and really uplifting the work that is being done by Denise and others within Allensworth. And so a couple updates for you all. And so our clean water attendant use plan and our drinking water attendant use plan, those are updates. We do updates for both of those annually. And so both of those have come before the board, and we have adopted those updates on August 5th. We adopted. Oh my goodness, it must be early, or I have not had enough caffeine. So on August 5th, we have adopted the update to the Clean Water Attendant Use Plan, and just at our last board meeting on August 19th, we adopted updates to the Drinking Water Attendant Use Plan. So both of those are in place. Based on conversations with staff, we have received some funding for the Clean Water Attendant Use Plan from the federal government. And so that is in place and is moving out to communities. On the Drinking Water Attendant Use Plan, we will be submitting that to the federal government, to US EPA, and we anticipate receiving that grant also. The Delta Conveyance Project, this is one that I am under ex parte, so cannot speak much about it, but did want to provide you just a short update. On June 20th, our Administrative Hearing Office released the 6th-minute hearing notice for the hearings. The evidentiary portion of the public hearing has resumed and will continue throughout August into September and in October via Zoom. More information can be found on that project's hearing webpage. So water measurement and reporting regulation SB 88, also on August 5th, the state board adopted proposed revisions to the diversion measurement and reporting regulation. And so that text and resolution and the sequel notice of exemption can be found on the program's webpage. Moving over to our fees and stakeholder process, that is also something that the state board does every year. So annually, we take a look at our fees. We are primarily a fee-based organization. And so every year we take a look at those fees, make sure that the fees are adequately covering our services, or if we are perhaps collecting too many fees, we take a look at that and want to make adjustments there also. And so annually we start working with our stakeholders and taking a look at those fees. And so that process started earlier this year. Our last meetings have occurred, and the staff are bringing the revised fee schedules to the state board for consideration of adoption on September 16th. Our Safer Advisory Group. So applications, we're accepting applications for the advisory group. So on July 1st, applications for the Safe and Affordable Funding for Equity and Resilience Advisory Group, also known as the Safer Advisory Group, opened. It is to fill 10 seats for the 26-27 term. So the Safer Advisory Group is made up of 20 appointed members that represent public water systems, technical assistance providers, local agencies, non-governmental organizations, the public, residents, served by community water systems and disadvantaged communities, state small water systems, and domestic wells. So the deadline to apply is August 31st, so the end of this month, which is next week. So please, if you are interested or know someone who is interested, please get the application in by next week. Our Tribal Affairs program, on July 31st and August 1st, the Water Boards co-hosted the 2025 Tribal GIS Summit with the California Tribal Geographic Information Systems, aimed at advancing Indigenous geospatial capacity, data sovereignty, and environmental stewardship. Key themes include Indigenous data sovereignty, environmental monitoring, climate resilience, and interagency collaboration. So that is an annual event, and really proud that we are able to co-host that event. So our Irrigated Lands program, I know you are all heavily involved in it and was very happy to attend in person the first reconvening of an expert panel. And so this is our second expert panel. We had the first and second meetings. I was happy to attend in person for the first one. Missed the second, unfortunately, had a scheduling conflict there, but do plan on taking a look at it online. So State Board staff worked with the California University of Sacramento to convene the panel. And so, okay, I'm just going to read this because it's a lot. So to convene the panel as discussed in order number, water quality order number 2023-0081, in case you want to look that up. In the matter of review of general waste discharge requirements for the discharge from irrigated lands, order number R3, so region 3, 2021-004. The panel selection process, it's complete. The first meeting, as I said, it was held over, was on August 8th. So I made it to that one. I did not make it to the meeting on August 14th. And so we're really encouraging the public to attend. Want to thank you for your attendance and your participation in that. I'm sure you'll hear more about it. Sacramento River Temperature Management Plan. On June 24, 2025, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation submitted the Sacramento River Temperature Management Plan, also known as the TMP, to the State Board for approval pursuant to Board Order 90-5. The TMP describes how reclamation will operate its facilities to meet temperature requirements for the preservation of salmon that spawn and live below Shasta Reservoir. The board's executive director issued the conditional approval of the TMP on July 3rd, 2025. Additional information can be found on our website. So that concludes my report for this board meeting. If you have any questions, I am available. And so I'm available now, and always you can reach out anytime in between meetings.
Thank you, Nicole. Denise?
Yes, I have a
looks like-
question.
yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning, Nicole. The question I have is regarding the SAFER program. I've heard recently that there's possibly SAFER funding could be in jeopardy. Is there any truth to that? I
Well-
heard you make mention of the additional advisory groups you were seeking different advisors, but I'm wondering about the funding. Is that still going to be available?
Yes, and so two things are occurring right now. One is that we are looking at the fund expenditure plan, which lays out how the State Board's Division of Financial Assistance administers the funding for the SAFER program. And so that is one thing. We did delay that item coming to the board. There were some big policy changes that were occurring. We wanted to really make sure that not only our board members, but the public had adequate time to weigh in and to take a look at those changes. And so that will be coming in front of the board at an upcoming board meeting. So that is one item. So that will lay out how we continue to administer those funds. The other item is that there's also an effort to really take a look at all of the funding that is coming from the Air Board, and that is part of our funding. And so it's just a reorganization to take a look at the funding as a whole. We do anticipate that we will continue to receive funding. We are working not only with the Air Board and the GHG funding, but also with the administration to adequately not only lay out our funding needs, which we do through our annual needs assessment, but then also continue to correctly, lost of words here, but correctly lay out the needs for all of our communities, whether they're on the SAFER list or not. As you know, that Allensworth at one point in time was not on that list, so however did have a need. And so that was something that was also discussed at our board meeting earlier this week, to make sure that we are looking at, for my words at the board meeting, were look at those communities that slip through perhaps our methodology and making sure that we are also uplifting those communities and making sure that we are meeting those funding needs as well.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I appreciate that updated. It's important and good information we can pass on to the community and the other partners that we work with. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Denise. Any other board members have any questions or comments for Nicole? Nicole, thank you very much. You're obviously working on a lot of important stuff. I'll be particularly focused on certainly the expert panel and the discussion around that, among other things. So thank you very much for being here this morning.
Thank you. I was happy to join you today.
All right. Now we're now on to the public forum part of the agenda. This is for items not on the agenda. If you're a person at the meeting or online, but have submitted a speaker card or have raised your hand on Zoom, now is the time to do that. Mindy, do we have anyone on Zoom or in person that wishes to speak on items not on the agenda?
There are none.
All right. Seeing that there are none, we'll now move on to the executive officers report. So Patrick.
Certainly, I actually have two Superior Accomplishment Awards. I'm not sure exactly how we're going to work it. My proposal would be we'd have the recipients come down to these chairs, and then after both the awards are given, if the board would want to come down from the very, very high dais and take a picture with the awardees in front. I think that might work, if that works for the board.
That absolutely works.
All right. Charles, would you come down? I know you get your steps in at this room. Feel free to kind of sit down if you'd like. We don't need to put you on the actual hot seat out there. So first and foremost, Charles is one of the folks who works in our dairy program, confined animal facilities program. Before getting into the text that was written up by his supervisor, just to let you know that this program is possibly one of the programs where staff have a greater portfolio than virtually any other program statewide. There are literally just a handful of staff regulating close to 1,300 facilities. So at every step of the way, we're looking for kind of the top tier staff, looking for a lot of efficiencies to deal with that regulatory program. And my personal experience is a lot of Charles' work makes its way all the way up to the executive management team. It's that stellar. So without further ado, and again, staff never seem to want to come down here. A lot of this work happens behind the scenes, but I do think it's very important to recognize the work of staff that's happening behind the scenes day in, day out. So without further ado, Charles has been working at a superior level by taking the initiative to provide excellent ideas and improvement to our unit's work, operations, and efficiencies. The Confined Animal Facilities Unit is historically prone to being overworked and under-resourced, and staff have to use outdated methods and technologies to complete our unit's mission, regulatory compliance, facility inspections, enforcement, permit writing, document management, and file retention. In that context, Charles has excelled at finding ways to make things better, more efficient, and assisted or led efforts to meet successful closures and deadlines. Some of these superior accomplishments are as follows: successfully issued and completed a cleanup and abatement order for a dairy that had for years eluded compliance with their waste discharge permit requirements and avoided completion of corrective actions. Charles' steadfast and professional diligence got the dischargers to understand and make the efforts they needed to clean up their dairy and stop the non-compliant operations. Charles' effort and skills at getting these long-term recalcitrant dischargers to come back into compliance helped them avoid an administrative civil liability complaint and potential massive fines. Charles' efforts reflected positively on the Central Valley Water Board. Another item, after discussions with his supervisor about streamlining some of our repeated regulatory documents and letters as such owner, operator, and name change requests that are constantly being processed. He took the initiative and created an easy-to-use approval letter template and work order template and trained staff on how to use them. This has greatly increased the ease of writing these documents and has sped up the review and approval process. As a result, executive signatures and mailouts are much more efficient, which has helped keep our project records more up to date. This effort alone has positive ripple effects in all our document and information management systems. And last but not least, Charles consistently provides technical support above and beyond in helping to find better ways to track data, manage data, and integrate information that cannot be stored in centralized databases or is attached to other unfunded mandates that require coordination with other regulatory programs. For this and a lot of other work, Charles is very deserving of this accomplishment award. Congratulations. Hang out since. Nothing. Come on now. Seats aren't too bad here. I will say that. Jonathan Muir is an engineering geologist in the Forest Activities Unit. Jonathan started with the North Coast Water Board in 2014 and transitioned to the Central Valley Water Board in July of 2017. Jonathan has served as the Central Valley Water Board representative to the Board of Forestry since 2017. In this role, he attends monthly meetings of the board and its subcommittees, speaks for the Water Board on issues such as new legislation and changes to the forest practice rules, and provides a summary of the meetings and to other members of the Forest Activities Program. In 2023, he became a member of the Effectiveness Monitoring Committee for the board, reviewing grant proposals for forest improvement projects and serving as a liaison for approved projects. Jonathan is also the Water Board liaison to the Stanislaus National Forest, a position that involves providing oversight for all timber projects performed in the Stanislaus, including inspections, seasonal monitoring, and ensuring compliance with the Water Board's Timber General Order. Jonathan was also involved in the development of the new federal permit that was adopted this year. In his role overseeing federal lands, he recently worked with the Bureau of Land Management to address a native surface road which had discharged dozens of cubic yards of sediment into the Cosumnes River and was threatening to discharge hundreds more. After multiple inspections and the utilization of progressive enforcement, Jonathan was able to ensure that the BLM closed the road and mitigated the sediment delivery potential. In 2022, Jonathan was tasked with forming an interagency group to develop trainings for the Water Board, CGS, CDFW, and CAL FIRE staff involved in forest management. Within this group, Jonathan has developed multiple trainings per year, both field and webinar based, all of which are recorded for later viewing. Jonathan also served as the president of the Central Valley Water Board Employee Association from 2017 to January of this year, maintaining the esprit de corps for the office and ensuring the EA continued through the COVID years when he was the sole remaining member. He consistently turns in exemplary work, maintains a positive attitude, and is ready to take on any task that is asked of him. And for the board's edification, I do really want to emphasize and express my gratitude to Jonathan for his work at the Employee Association. It really is an addition to everything that he was doing in the field. But during COVID times, there was very, very little that helped stitch the staff together. And everyone looked forward to the interviews that Jonathan conducted with staff, including new staff, including staff in other offices, with an amazing amount of humor and humility, letting folks get to know the staff from across all the regions. Really a key component in helping keep the morale of the regional board going throughout some really, really tough times where, again, staff were kind of working in a vacuum. Everybody was in their office at home looking at a monitor, and getting to know new staff that were being onboarded and staff that they weren't getting to see face to face was such an important component to that. And Jonathan was the sole member of the employee association at that time. It is really valuable, the work that's done both in the field and through those intangibles. I really, really want to applaud you for all the work that you did there and all the work that you do as part of your day job as well. So congratulations, Jonathan, highly deserving of this award.
All right. Well, high praise for both. So let's step down off the
Absolutely.
dais and take some
Step
pictures.
down, take a couple pictures.
All right.
And you're getting your steps in today.
All right, let's get back to it. So thanks again, both Jonathan and Charles. Goes to show you that what you do is important, but who you do it with is also just as important. So we are at public comment for anything on the executive officer's report, unless, I'm sorry, is there more?
No, we
Nope.
don't have anyone for.
We don't have anybody.
We
Is
are in
there any
good
more?
shape. There's no more. I mean, there's always more, but if you have any questions on any of the substantive material in the executive officer's report, as always, I'm available to discuss it. And also, as always, my thanks goes out to Mindy for always putting the material together and herding the cats so that we have some important information to share with you each board meeting.
I will echo that on Mindy. We certainly, wouldn't be able to do what we do without you, Mindy. Thank you. All right, any questions for Patrick on this item? All right, and seeing that we don't have any public comments, we'll move on. The next item is consideration of the minutes from the June 20th, 2025 board meeting. Do we have any questions, corrections, additions? Otherwise, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mindy, please take the roll.
Board Member Kadara,
Denise? Did we lose Denise?
No, yes.
Thank you, Denise.
Board Member Bradford,
Yes.
Board Member Yang,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lee Reader,
Aye.
and Chair Abdus.
Yes. All right, next item is the proposed meeting dates for 2026. I hope board members have had ample opportunity to review their availability and provide any feedback to Mindy. So do we have any questions, comments, or otherwise from board members on the meeting dates? No? Denise, do you have any questions on the board dates for 2026?
No, I don't. I'd just like to get the dates again, but otherwise I'm fine with the information.
Okay. Yeah, they're in the agenda, and then maybe Mindy, you can send out a meeting in a calendar invite for folks. I think you actually did, but yeah. So just confirm Denise received that.
Will do.
Thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion at this point.
So move.
All right. Moved by Sean,
A second.
second by Mark. All right, Mindy, please call the roll.
Board Member Kadara,
Yes.
Board Member Bradford,
Yes.
Board Member Yang,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lee Reader,
Aye.
and Chair Abdus.
Yes. All right. Next up is the uncontested calendar. Obviously, a lot of items on this uncontested item calendar. And I think we have some folks here. Mindy, is that correct? Do we have folks here from the Water Quality Coalition, the Pitt River exemption item that wanted to?
Yes, we do have several people in person, and we have a few people online on Zoom as well.
And so item 10 is not part of the consent calendar. My suggestion would be that we move with the uncontested calendar and then see if we can solicit if there are any objections to item 10.
Okay. Yeah, my mistake. I misread the agenda, so I apologize. So at this point, item 16 through 19, but also including item 12, which was moved to the uncontested calendar. If you're a person at the meeting and wish to speak, but have not submitted a speaker card, please fill out a blue card at the reception table and give it to a staff member. If you're on Zoom and wish to speak and have not registered, please raise your hand. So at this point, Mindy, to clarify, do we have anyone on the uncontested calendar?
No, no one on the uncontested calendar.
All right. Do we have any late revisions?
No late revisions.
All right. Does council have anything we need to discuss on any of the uncontested items?
No, we do not.
All right. I will entertain a motion at this point for the uncontested agenda items 16 through 19, but also including item 12.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right. I have a motion second. Mindy, please take the roll.
Board Member Kadara,
Denise?
I'm having a hard time trying to use my cell phone, but I vote yes.
All right. Thank
Board-
you.
Board Member Bradford,
Yes.
Board Member Yang.
Aye.
Vice Chair Lee Reader,
Aye.
and Chair Abdus.
Yes. All right. So now where I sort of jumped the gun a little bit on item 10. Mindy, would you please announce the item? And then Patrick, I think you have some comments to make.
Item 10 is a consideration of the Sacramento Valley Water Quality Coalition Pitt River exemption for Lassen, Modoc, Shasta, and Siskiyou counties. We are considering a resolution revising the irrigated lands regulatory program, General Order number R5 2014-0030-11. I do not see anybody on the Zoom call or in person that is contesting this item. I would suggest if there is somebody who would like to speak essentially in favor of the item, that we go ahead with the vote. And if there are any thanks to be given to staff, because I know staff worked very, very hard on this, that there could be a couple minutes dedicated after the item to have a discussion or thanks for staff. But again, I would turn it over to you, Chair Avdis, to see if there is anybody speaking in opposition to this item before we go ahead with that.
Yeah, this is obviously an item that a lot of work and effort has gone into over many, many years. And yes, we'll reserve some time after the vote, obviously to express gratitude with folks' participation and staff's obviously dedication to working through the issues. And at this point, I would encourage anyone only in opposition to this item to speak. Folks in support if they feel compelled, but I would again ask you to wait until after the vote, and we'll take a few minutes to share some thoughts on that. So with that in mind, do we have any speakers slips in opposition, or do we have any folks on the Zoom in opposition? No. Councils or something you, no? All right. So in that case, do we have anyone that wants to speak, given my earlier admonition?
I would encourage the vote, and then we go if
Okay.
anybody has any.
So at
gratitude.
this point, you know, I've worked on this item. I'm happy to make the motion at the chair's discretion on this item. I'll move to approve the staff recommendation.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second. Mindy, please take the roll.
Board Member Gadara,
Yes.
Board Member Bradford,
Yes.
Board Member Yang.
Aye.
Vice Chair Lee Reader,
Aye.
and Chair Avdis.
Yes. So with that, I would like to take a few minutes to recognize and give folks an opportunity to speak on this item. I know it seems a bit anticlimactic in the manner in which that item was adopted, but that sort of belittles the fact that there was an enormous effort. I see Bruce Hadeschelt is here. I know there are folks from the participating counties up in the Pitt River up there that want to speak. So at this point, I'd like to open the floor to comments. So Mindy, you want to sort of herd the cats on that end?
Bruce, would you like to speak?
This is a momentous day. Our journey began in 2016. I have a picture of Adam, Patrick, all at a church when we did a field tour in October of 2016. It has been a thoroughly vetted process, and I thank all of you who've participated in it. I will forget some names. It's sort of like the Emmys when you forget to mention some names, but I can think of names like Lynn Coster, Victor Batista, certainly Olivia Matthews, that have been so instrumental. Petra Lee have been so instrumental in this conversation to make sure it's thoroughly vetted. And it's a little bittersweet because along the way, we've lost some people that were integral to this process, beginning in late December with the passing of Pam Giacomini, and then the sudden loss of Dr. Ken Tate. And then about a month ago, former regional board staffer Susan Fergain, who was very involved in this process. Thank you for recognizing that the parts of this Central Valley, the regulation should be commensurate with the risk. And Chair Avdis, and others. I especially appreciate you, Chair Avdis, because it's a long way with a great reward to travel in one day up to the Pitt River and then travel back. And I appreciate you doing that in one day because cell service can be spotty. Shasta looks beautiful from the Big Valley, but thank you for doing that, and thank you everyone who was involved in this, who documented us and got us to this day. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Online, we have Ned Coe.
Did you say Ned? Yeah,
Yes,
Ned? Ned?
Yep.
Oh, there's Ned.
I had to get it unmuted. Thank you. I would like to echo Bruce's comments. Excuse me, by way of introduction, Ned Coe, Modoc County Board of Supervisors Chair, and also a rancher that is an irrigator in the Pitt River, Upper Pitt River. Like to thank the board and all staff, and I'm not going to try and name names because I would definitely overlook a key individual, but as a group, thank you. I would like to give a special thank you to posthumously with Ken Tate and all of Cooperative Extension that has helped move this forward. And you may have mentioned, Mr. Chair, that it was kind of anticlimactic, but trust me, there's a very warm feeling amongst all of us and very appreciative. Thanks for all your hard work on this. We look forward to continuing to work to improve water quality throughout California.
Thank you, Ned.
We also have one more person online with a phone number ending in 213. If you could please unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Tammy Humphrey. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Tammy. Go ahead.
Wonderful. I'm the administrative executive for the Northeastern California Water Association. And we, on behalf of NECWA and the landowners in the Upper Pitt River, we want to send our thank you and for the support to accomplish this goal that so many have worked on for a long time. So thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Do we have anyone else?
That's all we have.
Yeah, I also too want to, Bruce, I appreciate you acknowledging the trip that I made up there, but let's be frank. I mean, there was a lot of work that was put into this by staff, and I want to give Patrick and Adam the opportunity to recognize staff and the effort they made, obviously, in this endeavor. And also, obviously, appreciate all the folks up in the Pitt River watershed. I know, Ned, you're talking on behalf of a lot of folks, and Tammy the same way, a lot of folks that I met up on that trip, and do express my extreme appreciation and gratitude for the time, effort, and dedication. And certainly, as Bruce said, it is a little bittersweet with the loss of Pam Jack-Mimi and Ken Tate and others as well during this process. But, you know, hopefully we all recognize, you know, the tremendous contributions that were made by those folks, but also want to recognize the tremendous contributions by our staff. So Adam, do you want to, or Patrick?
Chair Avdis, before you move on, we'd have one more person that raised their hand. Carrie
Okay,
Fisher.
yes, please. Who is that? Who?
Harry Fisher is on Zoom.
Yeah, Carrie Fisher, go ahead.
Carrie Fisher from the California Farm Bureau, and I did put in a speaker card, and I just want to echo what Ned Coe and Bruce said, and we are very appreciative, and thank you guys for this exemption.
Thank you, Carrie. All right, I'll hand it back over to Patrick.
I I do want to say, you know, my gratitude, as mentioned, goes out to everybody here. We were tough on him. we wanted to make sure that if we were going to take this action that we took today, that there was enough evidence in the record to truly demonstrate that this was a low threat to water quality that merited the removal of the irrigated lands regulatory program from this area. And to their credit, with the help of folks like Dr. Ken Tate, everybody came forward and had those discussions. The board went up there, took a look at the types of activities that were conducted in that watershed, and ultimately reached what I believe is a reasonable conclusion to regulation in this area. So I do really want to thank everybody. We asked a lot, and we were provided the necessary information to make this decision that we made here today. Last but not least, my only deep regret is that we won't be able to travel up there as much now that we are gone. I suppose we won't be able to travel up there as much as a board. I think we have a number of members here that will get up there on their personal capacity, maybe to catch a fish or two. But that's as it should be. But again, anyhow, I'll turn it over to Adam, who did a lot of the legwork going up and having those discussions with not just the growers, but with the tribal community up there to ensure that their needs were met as we engaged in these discussions.
I'll just, right. Yeah, okay. I think all that I want to say is just a thank you to the community and all the hard work people put in, and the staff that worked on this. A lot of work went into this, and I think the data bore out that this is an area that it is different, and the water quality is good. The practices in that area and the cultural practices in that area are good, and that's a success for water quality. And it's wonderful to see that align with our regulatory program. So that's thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. And thank you, Patrick, because that's exactly right. Okay, moving on the agenda. Item 11, City of Lodi, White Slough Water Pollution Control Facility, San Joaquin County. Consideration of the revised wastewater discharge requirements for order number R5 2007-0113-01. As folks are getting situated here, at this time, the board will consider. I'll wait till everybody's sort of settled in here. Okay, at this time, the board will consider revised wastewater discharge requirements for the City of Lodi, White Slough Water Pollution Control Facility, San Joaquin County. If you are in person at the meeting and wish to speak but have not submitted a speaker card, please fill out a blue card at the reception table and give it to a staff member ASAP. If you are on the Zoom platform and wish to speak but not registered, please raise your hand. I guess I should wait for the staff presentation before I go to the public comments on this. So with that, I'll hand it over to staff on this item.
Good morning, Board Chair Edvis and members of the board. My name is Scott Armstrong. I'm a senior engineering geologist and unit manager for the Waste Discharge to Land Permitting Unit in the Rancho Cordova office. Joined today by permitting staff, Madeline Kelsch, and also our program manager, Alex Michigan. Before we move into our presentation, I just wanted to make a few comments for context of the City of Lodi. The city covers approximately 14 square miles, and it's home to many of the small wineries and wineries in the Central Valley. Data from the California Employment Development Department and the U.S. Census Bureau shows that about 50% of Lodi's community is part of the labor force in the community. And the U.S. Census data shows that the population is about 66,000 people. The city's mean household income is 85% of the statewide average, and it is the second lowest scoring MHI in San Joaquin County. Also worth noting is that approximately 14% of the population in city of Lodi is below the poverty line. So I just wanted to point out the statistics because they underscore the financial challenges faced by the community and their dependence on local infrastructure services such as sanitary sewer service. So with that, I'd like to transfer the presentation over to permitting staff. Thank you.
I do think we overlooked something, and that is the swearing of the oath. We can get that done.
Wait, Patrick, can you repeat that, please?
I think we neglected to do the swearing of the oath component for the folks that may be testifying here today.
Yes. Yes, thanks, Patrick. So all persons expecting to testify and provide evidence, please raise your right hand and take the following oath. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth? If so, answer I do. Okay. And I would ask that you please state your name, address, affiliation, which you have done before before testifying. Okay. So just to bring this back on track, Patrick, the next. Yeah. All right. Is it appropriate at this point to staff to continue with the presentation? Okay, so please continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Avdis and board members. My name is Madeline Kelsch. I'm a water resources control engineer for the waste discharge to land permitting unit in our Rancho Cordova office, and I have taken the oath. And today I'm going to be talking about the revised waste discharge requirements for the City of Lodi's White Slough Water Pollution Control Facility. Next slide. So starting with an overview of the facility, the water pollution control plant is located in San Joaquin County. It's approximately 5 miles southwest of the city of Lodi. And as you can see from this satellite view, the facility is located in a very agricultural region. I'll also note that the northeast boundary of the facility is bordered by a dairy, and that dairy's associated land application areas. And there are 2 other dairies located to the southwest and west of, southeast and east of the facility as well. And then the last thing I'll point out on this map is that directly to the northwest of the facility is the White Slough Wildlife Area, which consists of several ponds and wetlands. Next slide. So the treatment facilities were constructed in 1966, and the facility receives both domestic wastewater from City of Lodi residents, as well as industrial wastewater from industries within the city. And surrounding the treatment facilities are 826 acres of city-owned farmland that are leased out to farmers for growing crops. And effluent from the facility can be discharged in a variety of ways. So it gets, in the winter months, discharged to Dredger Cut under a separate MPDS permit. And that permit's not impacted by these revisions. They touch only on the land application permit. Effluent can also be recycled to on-site industrial users, including 2 power plants. And then lastly, water can be recycled for crop irrigation on those 826 acres of land application areas. The solids at the facilities are treated in anaerobic digesters to Class B biosolid standards, and then they get land applied as soil amendment. And this facility is regulated under current WDRs from 2007 that were amended in 2013. And they're being revised to consolidate all the land application activities under a single permit to simplify reporting, since they're currently regulated under individual WDRs as well as a general order. Next slide. This map shows the facility features. So directly in the center, we have the domestic wastewater treatment facilities, and these treat to both secondary and tertiary standards. The secondary treated water goes through settling and biological treatment, and that greatly reduces solids, nitrogen, and biochemical oxygen demand. And the secondary treated water is stored in the secondary storage ponds, and then it gets used for irrigation on the land application areas. The domestic wastewater can also go through tertiary treatment. So tertiary treatment means that that secondary treated wastewater is filtered and disinfected using ultraviolet light. And filtration and disinfection remove pathogens, and this quality of wastewater can be used for a variety of purposes. So that tertiary treated water can be stored in the tertiary pond, discharged to Dredger Cut, which is a tributary to the San Joaquin River under that NPDES permit, or it can be recycled on site to the Northern California Power Agency power plants or the San Joaquin County Mosquito and Vector Control District fish rearing ponds. Next slide. So the facility also receives industrial wastewater, and the industrial dischargers are permitted under an industrial pretreatment program, and that requires dischargers to meet certain water quality and flow requirements. And the industrial wastewater is predominantly canning process water from the Pacific Coast producers nearby canning fruit facility. And those flows are very seasonal, so they come from about June to September every year. And during this period, the industrial flows make up about 18% of plant flows. There are other industrial dischargers that discharge year-round, but flows from those dischargers are very minimal. However, these industrial flows do not enter the domestic wastewater treatment process or ponds. Those flows get screened and then they are sent directly to the land application area for irrigation. And the last note here on this slide is that canning process water has high biochemical oxygen demand because it is high in organic content. And I'm going to just discuss this briefly. Slide. So you might have seen this slide before discussing BOD. BOD is a parameter that represents the amount of oxygen needed to break down organic matter. So water that is high in BOD is high in organic matter, meaning that there is more oxygen needed to break it down. So in the image on the left, you see an aerobic environment where there are microorganisms, organics, and oxygen. And the microorganisms use oxygen to break down the organic matter. And there should still be water left or oxygen left in the water. However, if water with high BOD or high organics is applied excessively, it can create anaerobic conditions, and those are shown on the image on the right. And in this scenario, the microorganisms essentially use up all the oxygen available to break down the organics, which means that the environment is anaerobic or depleted from oxygen. And this can cause odors as well as other associated issues. Slide. So anaerobic conditions can also cause naturally occurring metals in soil to dissolve and migrate into groundwater. And typically we see this for iron and manganese. And this can occur naturally in areas that have very shallow groundwater or in soils that have high levels of organic matter. However, application of high BOD wastewater can also cause anaerobic conditions because there's an insufficient amount of oxygen present for microbes to break down the organics. And these anaerobic conditions can be localized. So as groundwater moves away from the impacted area, it can become reoxygenated, and the iron and manganese can then become less soluble, which means that those dissolved metal levels can decrease and return to natural conditions. So all this is to say that there are several factors that can create anaerobic conditions. High BOD loading is certainly one of them. However, those impacts can be very localized. Next slide. So the land application areas surrounding the facility are irrigated with a blend of the undisinfected secondary effluent, the industrial wastewater, and then supplemental groundwater when additional irrigation water is needed to meet demands. And therefore, the effluent constituents and parameters with the potential to impact groundwater include salts, total nitrogen, BOD, because high levels of BOD can mobilize metals in groundwater, and then manganese, which can be mobilized if anaerobic conditions exist. Next slide. The discharger is participating in CV salts. So under the salt control program, they have elected to participate in the prioritization and optimization study under the alternative salinity approach. Under the nitrate control program, the discharger is in a priority 2 basin, and they've elected to pursue pathway B, local management zone. Although the facility does nitrify and denitrify their domestic wastewater, and the domestic wastewater is low in nitrate, shallow groundwater in the area does exceed the drinking water standard for nitrate, which might make compliance with the individual permitting pathway difficult, and therefore they're pursuing the local management zone. Next slide. Order sets several limitations, the first of which are flow limitations. It sets a limit of 8.5 million gallons per day of effluent, average dry weather flow, and then 7.2 MGD as average daily flow to the land application areas. The order also sets a salinity action level of 875 milligrams per liter for total dissolved solids. So under the CV salts program, the discharger must maintain their existing salt dischargers, and this limit is representative of that. The nitrogen loading to the land application areas is limited to agronomic rates, so the discharger cannot discharge more nitrogen than what the plants are able to uptake. And then lastly, biochemical oxygen demand loading is limited to 200 pounds per acre per day as a cycle average. Next slide. So this is a map of the groundwater elevation contours based on the dischargers monitoring well network, which is also shown on the map. And what the contour shows that the gradient is generally to the southeast, and this has been true for the many years that the discharger has been monitoring. And that groundwater gradient is driven by groundwater pumping to the southeast and then recharge from the White Slough Wildlife Area ponds and wetlands directly to the northwest. Groundwater spans from a few feet below the surface in the facility's westernmost monitoring wells to more than 30 feet below the surface in the easternmost groundwater monitoring wells. So groundwater is very shallow in the western portion of the facility, and this portion of the facility also has soils that are naturally high in organic content. And like I mentioned previously, these factors can lead to reducing conditions, which can mobilize dissolved metals in groundwater. Next slide. So this chart summarizes water quality data in the blended irrigation water and in groundwater using data from 2019 to 2023. And it summarizes the average quality for the wells located up gradient from the facility and the average for the wells on site. The background groundwater quality for both the salinity constituents represented by EC and TDS, as well as nitrate, exceed the water quality objectives, and groundwater in the area is not considered high quality for salinity or nitrate. Groundwater is considered high quality for iron and manganese based on this data, and since those background concentrations are below the water quality objective, some on-site wells have concentrations of manganese that exceed both the water quality objective and background concentrations, as you can see by that, the 200 there on the chart for manganese. I will just mention that the water quality objectives for iron and manganese are secondary MCLs. So that means those limits are based on the aesthetics of drinking water, such as taste and odor, rather than any health concerns. Next slide. So there are 4 compliance wells that have dissolved manganese levels exceeding the water quality objective. And those wells are highlighted in red on this map. The yellow wells indicate concentrations below the water quality objective, and then the white wells have concentrations that are at detection limits. You'll note that well 15, which is upgradient of the facility's ponds, still has high levels of manganese, which could indicate that it is not the facility operations that are causing exceedances, but rather those high groundwater levels driven by recharge to the northwest from that wildlife area. But really what is shown by this overview map is that there are localized manganese impacts. However, by the time groundwater has reached those down gradient wells bordering the facility, wells 9, 6, and 12, the groundwater has recovered from those localized manganese impacts. Next slide. So comments on the tentative WDRs were received from 3 parties. 19 comments were received from West Yost on behalf of the discharger. 9 comments were received from the Central Valley Clean Water Association, or CEVICWA, and 42 comments were received from Ms. Joanne Kipps, an interested person. Comments from the discharger and CEVICWA were addressed in the response to comments, and neither party requested to contest the permit. Staff responded to the 42 comments from Ms. Kipps, who did request to contest, and therefore the following are just a summary of the major comments and responses from Ms. Kipps. Next slide. So issue number 1 is concern that solids have accumulated in the secondary ponds over the years and are releasing nitrate and manganese to groundwater, causing elevated levels above the water quality objective. And this concern is based on elevations of the pond bottoms taken from Google Earth. So we agree that the discharger should take measurements of the sludge thickness to determine if this is a concern. However, we do not agree that there's sufficient evidence at this time to determine that the accumulation is causing groundwater impacts. So in response to this comment, sludge thickness monitoring was added to the WDRs, and a requirement was also added for the discharger to evaluate the sludge thickness for both its impact on operational capacity as well as any potential impact on groundwater or a violation of the groundwater limitations. And if the evaluation determines that sludge thickness is having an impact, then the discharger is required to prepare a work plan for sludge removal. The discharger has not removed sludge from the secondary ponds since their construction. However, there is not a significant source of solids entering the secondary ponds. The domestic wastewater has very low levels of solids and organics as it has already gone through settling and clarification. And during canning season, when there are high volumes of industrial wastewater, that industrial wastewater is sent directly to the land application areas and does not enter the secondary ponds. There is a tailwater system surrounding the land application areas that recycles runoff back to the secondary ponds. However, the water balance submitted by the discharger shows that there are no tailwater flows during canning season. So really, there's a very minimal amount of industrial wastewater entering those secondary ponds. Therefore, it was recommended that actual measurements be taken of the sludge accumulation prior to requiring sludge removal. Next slide. Issue number 2 is that BOD loading rates allowed by the permit are too high and are resulting in mobilization of metals. And we disagree for the following reasons. The discharger performed a BOD loading study in 2009, which evaluated the impacts on different loading rates to odors and groundwater quality. They used test and control fields and soil columns and determined that there was no objectionable odors or impacts to the percolate from the soil columns at rates of 200 pounds per acre per day. The discharger has not had any odor complaints, and its current WDRs have that limit of 200 pounds per acre per day. So the revised WDRs carry over that maximum rate of 200 pounds per acre per day, and the rate that ensures compliance with the groundwater limitations if that's lower. And the discharger considers all of this in their annual cropping and irrigation plan. So to address Ms. Kipp's concerns, a provision was added to the WDRs requiring the discharger perform an updated organics loading study and technical report to reassess this limit and determine if a lower limit is needed. Next slide. Another issue raised was that because of elevated nitrate levels, the MRP should require soil monitoring, crop monitoring, and tissue analysis in its calculations for plant available nitrogen. And we disagree that this additional monitoring is necessary. The response to this comment noted that the discharger already uses assumptions to account for mineralized organic nitrogen in its plant available nitrogen calculations, and that current nitrogen mass loading calculation is adequate for the protection of groundwater. And this is based on several factors. So like I said previously, the facility is located in an agricultural region, and they're bordered and surrounded by several dairy operations as well. And the anti-degradation analysis concluded that shallow groundwater is not considered high quality for nitrate. The background nitrate concentrations are higher than the on-site nitrate concentrations in all but 2 wells, and the discharger has ceased application of biosolids and chemical fertilizer in the fields surrounding those wells with elevated levels until those concentrations reduce below background conditions. Also, the discharger nitrifies and denitrifies their domestic wastewater, and the concentrations of nitrogen in the blended irrigation water are lower than background levels of nitrate in the groundwater. And then lastly, the discharger is located in a priority 2 basin for nitrate under CV salts, and they've elected to participate in a local management zone consistent with the nitrate control program. Because of this, staff do not believe it's necessary to require additional soil and crop tissue monitoring for nitrate in the 27 agricultural fields. Next slide. One of the other concerns is that groundwater concentrations for manganese exceed the water quality objective, and therefore the discharge is not compliant with the basin plan. And we disagree with this assertion. The downgradient monitoring wells at the facility boundary show that groundwater is fully recovered from the localized manganese mobilization, and there is no indication that manganese degradation will impact beneficial uses. As noted previously, the naturally occurring soil conditions in the northwest and west portion of the property, as well as the adjacent wetlands, are likely the cause for dissolved manganese exceedances in these wells. However, the discharger has evaluated best practicable treatment or control under their previous WDRs, and they've implemented several practices, which include manganese source control outreach efforts. They lower the pond levels during part of the year to reduce anaerobic conditions in the ponds. And they've eliminated the land application of liquid biosolids, and they now only apply dewatered biosolids, which is thought to have helped decrease anaerobic conditions. In addition, as I mentioned before, the revised WDR order requires the discharger to complete the addendum or updated organics loading study technical report to reassess whether those BOD loadings up to 200 pounds per acre per day continue to have no significant impact on underlying groundwater, and that includes on levels of dissolved manganese. Slide. Issue number 5 was to revise the BOD loading calculation to use the equation specified in the current MRP. So we agreed that the equation presented in the tentative WDRs for calculating BOD loading by quadrant was confusing, and that equation was modified to clarify the calculation, but we don't agree that it's necessary for the discharger to report the loading rate for each individual field. The cycle average BOD loading calculation was revised with the standard equation used in the California League of Food Processors Manual of Good Practice. And the discharger will still collect data for individual fields. However, they will report cycle average BOD loading for each quadrant. Previously, this rate was calculated and reported for each individual field. The calculations for each quadrant will just look at a larger area, but they will still only consider non-zero cycle average values. So if there's no wastewater applied to a field, that acreage will not be included in the average. Calculating cycle average values for the 4 quadrants rather than the 27 agricultural fields just simplifies reporting requirements and review of reports, and it is not expected to have any impact on the reported cycle average loading values. Next slide. The last major comment was to add quarterly groundwater monitoring for total organic carbon and dissolved arsenic in the groundwater to the monitoring and reporting plan. The reason for this is because arsenic, like manganese and iron, can be mobilized by anaerobic conditions, and it's not currently monitored in the groundwater. And total organic carbon is a parameter that can quantify the organic content in the groundwater, and it can also be an indicator for anaerobic conditions. So we agree that it makes sense to collect this data. Both those parameters are useful, and the arsenic data will be included in the discharger's revised loading study. And so therefore, these parameters were added to the MRP requirements in response to this comment. Next slide. So having gone over the comments and responses to comments, Central Valley Water Board staff recommend adopting the proposed WDRs. We ask that the presentation be made part of the formal record, and we are happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Very thorough presentation. We'll now proceed with the testimony of the City of Lodi. Do we have any representatives from the City of Lodi online?
I don't believe there are any representatives from City of Lodi.
Okay, well then we will move on from any interested party who now wishes to comment. Mindy.
We have Joanne Kipps online.
All right, Ms. Kipps. Yes, Ms. Kipps will have 3 minutes to provide any testimony.
It would be 5 minutes for Ms. Kipps.
And we will give her 5 minutes. Ms. Kipps, please proceed.
Good morning. I'm Joanne Kipps, and I represent myself. I'm a civil engineer and resident of Fresno County. I request the board to reject the tentative order as it sets a precedent for future orders regulating dischargers that have already polluted high-quality groundwater. Wastewater from the nation's largest apricot cannery is applied by flood irrigation to cropland. Irrigation runoff is collected and stored in 4 unlined ponds, which have reportedly never been cleaned out. A Google Earth image taken in September 2021 showed 2 ponds dry. The elevations of their bottoms approach that of their perimeter berms, indicating they're almost full of sludge. Groundwater passing through the facility's offsite background wells contain manganese in concentrations below the water quality objective, even in wells that are in this so-called high organic soil. Manganese is a naturally occurring metal in soil that is mobilized by bacteria when organic loading exceeds the rate at which oxygen diffuses into soil during rest periods between waste applications. The oxygen diffusion rate through water is significantly lower than in air. This means soil underlying wastewater impounded in unlined ponds is not periodically re-aerated like surrounding cropland. Groundwater passing through several on-site wells contains manganese in concentrations above the water quality objective, in places by orders of magnitude. Wells close to the unlined ponds show the greatest impact. Despite this, the tentative order does not require the city to remove pond sludge on a timely basis. Rather, it defers to the city the decision of when and how much pond sludge should be removed. The city may delay sludge removal until required by overworked compliance staff responsible for enforcing the order's groundwater limitations. The tentative order justifies its BOD loading limit in part by citing a soil column study conducted 16 years ago that essentially concluded that BOD loadings up to the proposed limits will not cause manganese pollution in groundwater. However, wastewater was applied slowly to the soil columns, not all at once, to simulate flood irrigation. And at the end of the study, the soil columns were found to have been infested with tunnel burrowing ants. Consequently, oxygen diffused into soil columns at rates higher than field conditions. This casts doubt on the study's conclusion. The fact is, groundwater passing under the city's cropland and ponds contains manganese in concentrations greater than the water quality objective. Therefore, current BOD loadings, which reflect the proposed limit, and continued use of sludge-filled ponds have caused and will continue to cause manganese pollution in underlying groundwater. The board should not allow current polluting discharge practices to continue just as long as they don't make the pollution worse, as proposed in the tentative order. What incentive is there for other discharges to not pollute high-quality groundwater when they can simply rely on updated orders to authorize ongoing pollution just as long as it doesn't get worse? I hope the board can appreciate this approach is not consistent with water quality objectives established to protect beneficial uses and not fair to other dischargers who protect high-quality groundwater at considerable cost by implementing best practicable treatment or control. I request the board direct staff to revise the tentative order and establish a reasonable time schedule for the city to remove pond sludge and reduce BOD loadings. In time, manganese concentrations should decrease in affected groundwater, restoring its beneficial use for municipal and domestic supply for future generations. And this notion that the iron and manganese will precipitate when the groundwater is reoxygenated, that is not supported by evidence in this area. And if there is a continued organic loading to groundwater, there will not be any kind of reoxygenation of groundwater. So this is a misnomer. So again, I appreciate staff's effort in putting together this excellent presentation. Congratulations. And I hope that the board considers my request. Thank you.
All right. Mindy, we still, I assume, don't have anybody from the city of Lodi.
That's correct.
All right. Would any closing remarks from staff? All right. Patrick?
I will say that we've worked very closely with both the city and worked many hours on trying to address all of Ms. Kipp's comments. I think as you've heard, there are still some outstanding issues that Ms. Kipps has, but I do think the permit as proposed is fully protective of beneficial uses according to the water code and according to our policies and that we implement. There are very, very localized impacts. I think that is something that we have put the discharger on a path to compliance. Advocacy for immediate compliance every place, every time, everywhere is always a tough ask. And I think as Mr. Armstrong presented, there are demographic considerations that we make with communities, recognizing that they don't have unlimited resources to deal with these issues. So I am supportive of the staff proposal and would recommend that we adopt the permit as proposed.
Thank you, Patrick. At this point, I will close the hearing and I'll move on to any questions or comments from board members.
Yeah, I have one comment or question, I guess. It seems like most of the data was collected in that shallow groundwater aquifer that has limited beneficial use. Is there any monitoring of a deeper aquifer that's in the area that's been impacted or not impacted, or is there any data?
Yeah, we certainly can look to staff for that. We do have throughout the valley, I'm having trouble with this microphone, I'm sorry. A number of areas in this area and also in both priority 2 and priority 1 areas. We do have, depending on the depth of the groundwater, we do have impacts of nitrates, salts, and other constituents of concern. We also have done a number of management zone monitoring that shows that much of our groundwater has arsenic naturally occurring for many of these wells. And as Alex and his team said before, the upgradient wells here due to just there's upgrading agriculture, dairies, and other things that are also causing impacts. I think there's a wetland area just upgrading to this facility also that's impacting that groundwater. So it is kind of, it's a soup there. And, you know, the way we monitor groundwater at these sites is we look at kind of that first encountered groundwater, and as the groundwater moves across the site, we look at upgrading and downgrading. And what the figure that we had shows is that that down gradient water that's, you know, after those land application areas is looking very good for manganese. And so our conclusion there is that while there might be localized impacts for these right under the ponds or right under the facility, the groundwater leaving that facility is looking good. And it's also a taste and odor objective. So another thing is, you know, even though it might have a transient impact, this is a taste and odor objective that is not a human health constituent from the perspective of say, you know, a health impact.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I noted the migration offsite was a minimal concern. So as long as that data supports the WDRs as proposed, I support that with the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Mark. Any other questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to adopt the revised waste discharge requirements.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Sean. Mindy, please take the roll.
Board Member Gadara,
Yes.
Board Member Bradford,
Yes.
Board Member Yang,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lee Reader,
Aye.
Chair Abdus.
Yes, before we move on to item 15, I'd like to take just a brief, maybe 10-minute bio break. So we'll reconvene in 10 minutes.
Testing, testing, testing. Okay.
All right, let's call this session back to order. All right, we have one more item. Appears to be an informational item. Item 15. This is an informational item only with no action to be taken, although the board may ask questions and provide directions to staff. This is the San Joaquin River Dissolved Oxygen TMDL implementation item.
Hey,
Good morning.
good morning. Hi. Out. All right. Good morning, Chair Advis and board members. My name is Jennifer LeBay, and I am the Non-Point Source Program Manager for the board. Today, I will be presenting an informational item on dissolved oxygen conditions in the San Joaquin River's Stockton Deepwater Ship Channel, including an update on implementation of the Total Maximum Daily Load, or TMDL, and control program. Next slide. This presentation will begin with a brief background of the dissolved oxygen impairment in the Stockton Deepwater Ship Channel and actions that have improved DO in recent years. I'll then go on to discuss the TMDL that was adopted, as well as the control program for implementation. The background section will be followed by a short discussion of the aeration facility constructed and operated as part of the control program. Next slide. The Stockton Deepwater Ship Channel is a portion of the San Joaquin River that has been dredged to a depth of 35 feet to allow for the navigation of ocean-going cargo vessels between San Francisco Bay and the Port of Stockton. Upstream of the Deepwater Ship Channel, the San Joaquin River is otherwise about 10 feet deep. The entire length of the channel is tidal and experiences regular flow reversals. The ship channel hosts many different uses, including aquatic habitat, recreation, both water contact and non-contact, dredging, and industry. Next slide. Dissolved oxygen, or DO, in water is important for aquatic plants and animals. They need it for respiration. DO levels in water fluctuate naturally throughout the day. This is called the diurnal oxygen cycle and is primarily driven by photosynthesis and respiration. During the day, photosynthesis by aquatic plants and algae produce oxygen, causing DO levels to rise. At night, when photosynthesis ceases, DO levels decrease due to respiration and decomposition, which consumes oxygen. Low dissolved oxygen in the water can cause a number of negative effects on aquatic organisms, including stress, reduced growth, and even death. Our Sacramento-San Joaquin Basin Plan contains DO objectives for aquatic life. For the reach of the San Joaquin River in the Stockton Deepwater Ship Channel, we have 2 DO objectives that apply. Most of the year, our objective is 5 milligrams per liter. But during the fall, from September through November, the objective is 6 milligrams per liter. The objective changes in the fall to protect salmon migration through the channel. These low DO concentrations may act as a barrier to upstream spawning migration of Chinook salmon and may stress and kill other resident aquatic organisms. Next slide. In the Delta, the San Joaquin River from Stockton to its confluence with the Sacramento River has been dredged and deepened, forming the Stockton Deepwater Ship Channel. This figure shows in dark blue the section of the San Joaquin River in the Stockton Deepwater Ship Channel that has historically had an impairment for low dissolved oxygen. Since the mid-1930s and until recent improvements, the San Joaquin River near Stockton experienced regular periods of low dissolved oxygen that sometimes resulted in fish kills and delayed the upstream fall migration of Chinook salmon. The low DO conditions observed in the Deepwater Ship Channel resulted from loading of oxygen-demanding substances such as ammonia, algae, and other organic matter, reduced river flow through the channel, and channel deepening. Next slide. Basically, what happens in the Deepwater Ship Channel is there's a lot of algae and other organic matter. So when the San Joaquin River hits the dredged ship channel and slows down, it can become stagnant. This leads to excessive algal growth, which eventually dies. The breakdown of that organic matter, along with the respiration and other oxygen-demanding substances, use up a lot of the DO in the ship channel. Next slide. Now let's take a look at the TMDL. In 2005, this board adopted a TMDL and control program for factors contributing to the dissolved oxygen impairment. The TMDL required that responsible parties must coordinate to implement control measures addressing the impairment. Responsible parties include the City of Stockton Regional Wastewater Control Facility, the Port of Stockton, upstream dischargers, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Oxygen demand studies were also required by entities responsible for point and non-point sources in order to identify and quantify the sources of those substances. The DO control program also stated that the regional board may consider alternate measures as opposed to direct control if the measures adequately address the impact on the low dissolved oxygen impairment in the Stockton Deepwater Ship Channel and do not degrade water quality in any other way. In conjunction with the other approaches, the control program also contained a conditional prohibition of discharge of oxygen-demanding substances, which would become effective if dissolved oxygen objectives in the channel were not being met. Next slide. Since adoption in 2005, a number of actions have been implemented to address the DO impairment in the Stockton Deepwater Ship Channel. Regional board regulatory programs have included requirements in NPDES permits and waste discharge requirements to address DO impairment and implement the control program. The City of Stockton upgraded their wastewater treatment plant. An aeration facility was constructed at the Port of Stockton as an alternate measure of the control program to address the DO impairment. The aerator can be thought of as a giant fish tank bubbler that aerates the Deepwater Ship Channel. A number of studies of the sources and effects of oxygen-demanding substances were also completed. As a result of the reduced discharge of upstream oxygen-demanding substances from point and non-point sources, as well as the operation of the aeration facility, the dissolved oxygen conditions in the Stockton Deepwater Ship Channel have improved significantly since 2008. Next slide. In 2015, the TMDL came before this board for a reconsideration. At that time, the board recognized that, dissolved oxygen levels in the Stockton Deepwater Ship Channel had improved significantly due to the implementation of the control program. This board also recognized that based upon the information gathered during the control program studies, it was not feasible to revise the TMDL or control program. A resolution was adopted that supported continued implementation of the control program. Next slide. Now I'd like to discuss aeration in the channel along with the voluntary aeration agreement that provides funding for operations. In 2003, during TMDL development, a peer review of dissolved oxygen studies suggested aeration as a means of increasing dissolved oxygen levels in the channel. Aeration feasibility studies were undertaken, and a letter of intent to fund an aeration device was submitted to the board by interested stakeholders. In 2006 and 2007, the Department of Water Resources constructed a full-scale aeration facility at the Port of Stockton using $3.7 million in Proposition 13 funds. It is typically operated in the summer and fall when DO concentrations in the San Joaquin River can fall below the water quality objective. Starting in 2008, the facility underwent a demonstration testing period. The aerator was shown to be effective at increasing DO concentrations within the channel. In 2011, staff requested that interested stakeholders develop an aeration agreement to fund the operation and maintenance of this facility. The agreement was finalized in 2011, and the Port of Stockton, with support from other stakeholders in the watershed, has been operating and maintaining the aerator since then. Next slide. The aeration facility is located at the west end of Rough and Ready Island at the Port of Stockton. There are 2 aerators used to add oxygen to the deep water ship channel when DO levels are low. Due to the tidal action in the channel, this facility has improved DO conditions throughout the surrounding ship channel. Next slide. Combined, the 2 aerators can deliver close to 10,000 pounds of oxygen to the channel per day. It works by pulling in water from the ship channel and injecting oxygen into that water, which dissolves under high pressure at a depth of 200 feet. The highly oxygenated water is then returned back to the deep water ship channel through a diffuser located under the docks. Throughout the year, the port operates the aerators whenever DO concentrations drop below 5.2 milligrams per liter. However, from August to November, that threshold is raised to 6.2 milligrams per liter to benefit the winter run of the endangered Chinook salmon that pass through on their way to spawn upstream. Next slide. Oh, sorry, there should have been a slide graph before this. Okay, it didn't work. All right, well, this figure shows monthly average dissolved oxygen from 2001 through 2002. There we go. Measured at DWR's gauge on Rough and Ready Island in the deep water ship channel. The blue line is the dissolved oxygen concentration. The water quality objective is in red. Again, it is 5 milligrams per liter most of the year and 6 milligrams per liter September through November. The ups and downs you see reflect the diurnal changes in DO that I discussed earlier in my presentation. In 2005, the board adopted a total maximum daily load, or TMDL, for DO in the San Joaquin River, shown in dark green. Can you click again? In 2007, an upgrade of Stockton's wastewater treatment plant resulted in a large reduction of discharges of ammonia, which significantly improved DO. One more click. Also in 2007, an aerator was constructed in the deep water ship channel by the Department of Water Resources using Prop 13 funds. After a demonstration period, and a click again. After a demonstration period, operations of the aerator were turned over to the Port of Stockton in 2011. The Port of Stockton, with support from other stakeholders in the watershed, has been maintaining and operating the aerator since 2011. Another click. This figure shows average DO conditions for the last 10 years. The DO has improved. The low DO we had up through the early 2000s is gone. Even through drought periods, the DO is now consistently meeting standards. Dissolved oxygen concentrations in blue stay consistently above the water quality objectives in red. Since the DO has been meeting objectives, the conditional prohibitions of discharge have not been necessary. Next slide. Since 2011, the aerator has been operated and maintained under a voluntary aeration agreement between the Port of Stockton and stakeholder groups representing dischargers and water diverters in the watershed. The initial agreement was established to be effective from June 1st, 2011 to May 31st, 2014, and has been extended multiple times. Next slide. In conclusion, the control efforts have been successful. The dissolved oxygen conditions in the Stockton Deepwater Ship Channel have improved significantly since the adoption of the TMDL in 2005. Consistently meeting the dissolved oxygen water quality objectives will require occasional mechanical aeration. As long as these objectives are being consistently met, there is no need at the moment to trigger the conditional prohibition of discharge or other board regulatory actions. Staff appreciates the leadership role the Port of Stockton has taken with the aeration of the ship channel. We will continue to work to implement the control program and continue to coordinate with the Port of Stockton. Next slide. This concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board before I open up for public comment here?
No, thank you. I know we've had this topic on our agenda a few years ago, and the aerator was having some mechanical issues, which I guess have been resolved. I'm curious to have the fish counts improved with this aeration program, and I can see that it's meeting the water quality objective, but I'm just curious how that impact is.
I'm not sure about the salmon numbers going through. I know that we haven't seen any fish kills really since for the last several years with the implementation of the aerator, but I'm not sure about numbers.
There's a lot of other factors that influence that as well, obviously. So thank you.
Good not to see a lot of fish belly up. I think that was kind of the best numbers that we've got right now.
All right. Do we have any speakers on this item and public speakers, Mindy?
No.
Any further comments? I would just like to say very fascinating, and obviously to see that work in terms of meeting the water quality objectives. I mean, that's very satisfying to see that it's working, and appreciate also our partnership with the Port of Stockton on this important project. So just kind of as I was watching those slides, just remind me of a giant fish tank with your aerator in there.
That's about right. And again, I thank the board's indulgence for this presentation, and Jen, thank you so much for giving it. One of the reasons that I want to present it for the board is this really is an out-of-the-box type of TMDL action. There is built into this TMDL a conditional prohibition that would have basically had mostly growers up gradient of this subject to extraordinarily tough standards that they had to meet. Standards that weren't really directly connected to the fish issues that we're seeing in the Deepwater Ship Channel. They were instrumental in coming forward to find this engineered solution, really to the channel geometry more so than their discharges. And it's been working. It's been working at least for, from our perspective, we focus on the water quality chemistry, and it's been working. So as we continue to look at our TMDL program and seek out new ways of dealing with old challenges, this is a pretty good example. It has been operational about 20 years. I was remarking to Jessica, I remember when they were talking about the YouTubes, and this was before YouTube was actually a thing. So this has been going on a little while. But it is a really cool solution to a tough problem, especially when the alternative would be economically very detrimental to a lot of growers upstream of this particular facility.
Yeah, and thanks for highlighting that, Patrick. Obviously, creative solutions to, very complex problems. All right, with that, I think our business is done for today. So we are adjourning the meeting at 8 after 11.